Hello guys, today we're going to take a look at this Claas Jaguar here, and what we're going to do is take it apart and try and get an idea of what kind of space we have on the inside, and in particular what kind of space we're going to have for the drive motors, because I think that's what I'm going to do in the next few weeks. I'm going to add the drive motors. I'm thinking I'll take the ones out of the Volvo A40 dump truck because I have ordered 6 motors for that, and maybe they'll work out okay in here. At least we'll be able to test them out and print up a bracket to hold the motors inside this model. That's all assuming that there is plenty of space to put 2 N20 motors in here. I'm hoping to keep the steering servo and the motors quite low and leave all the rest of this space to hopefully put some sort of vacuum into the model, so that we might be able to suck up some grass and, if we're lucky, blow it out to chute. But that might prove just a little bit too difficult to do. So taking this model apart probably won't be too difficult. As usual with the Siku models, they mostly just screw apart. For this little maze header here, I'm thinking I might try and automate it slightly. I think if I put a little motor with a kind of a drum on it that will wind up 2 fishing lines, I might be able to lift the either side of this this maze header here so that they'll fold up and down. That'd be one thing. And then I was thinking, because these discs don't really have any load on them, they just spin quite freely, maybe if I get some vibration motors, tiny little motors, and put them in there, they'll be able to just spin those without without much difficulty really. But we'll see how that happens. That'll be something I do later on. My first priority with this model is to get it driving really. Well, the first thing we're interested in is seeing what kind of space we have around these wheels. So we're probably going to want space so that we can put some sort of pipe up around the motors. And as you can see, underneath it there's nothing to stop us putting the motors down a little bit. So let's hope that there's space to put the motors up into the model as well, that it's not blocked by anything. So I'll take this first panel off. I think this section here along this line will just come off, so let's see if that's right. So when we take out the 4 screws and we open this up, we can see that there's a bit of a suspension kind of system. Well, at least there's 2 springs that seem to let the axle float. I'm not exactly sure why they did that. Seems like a lot of work to go through for very little return. I mean, the model doesn't move, so unless they found that the model was braking a lot when maybe kids were pushing down on it too hard or something. So that seems to let the wheels float a little bit from side to side. I never really noticed that when I was just kind of pushing the model around. You can see all the axles always float around a bit like that there. We'll try and keep that in when we add the servo, the steering servo in there, which shouldn't be any problem. But this spring mechanism on the front here, that's probably going to get in the way when, well, it is going to get in the way when we go to put the N20 motors in there. So we'll have to replace that, I guess, or well, just remove it really. But if anyone knows exactly what that is for, you can let us know in the comments. I turned the model upside down and the 2 little plastic end pieces fell out of here and the 2 springs fell out. So they're pretty strong little springs, they're pretty good looking, so they might come in useful at some point in the future, you never know. If we take a look at the space that's left, so imagine we've removed this and we want to put in our 2 N20 motors, we can see that they actually won't fit like this. So the space is a little bit too small. Now, whether we'd be better to mill out a piece of the model and recess these up into the model, into the slots that we cut out, and make a 3D printed piece there to house them securely in there, which we could do. That would also mean we'd probably need to cut a small piece out of the wheels here, because they're quite a tight fit here. So maybe we'd need to cut a bit there, and that probably would leave things a little bit difficult as well. So we need to think about what we're going to do there. The axle here is 3mm, I think, so it would just, or the wheels should just fit straight on. If we drilled a hole and put a little screw down through it, we'd be able to put them straight on. Another option might be to get flipped N20 motors, so the motor would be there and then the gearbox would be alongside it. So you can see that 2 N20 motors would fit in there no problem, with a little bit of space for the wires. I don't have any at the minute, so I can't really show you what they'd look like, we should be able to get ones with long enough output shafts to go from, well, it usually is around about the length of the motor in, so from there to around about there. So it's quite a long output shaft, and we'd need to kind of put a little bearing there, so probably just a little 3D printed bit of plastic would do perfectly fine there, just to support the end of the axle so there's not too much load on the gearbox. But that would then allow us to just, well, mount the motors quite easily, because you can see there's quite a bit of space there, and we wouldn't need to modify the wheels, so that might be useful. We also probably, well, we might need to modify this slightly, but it wouldn't be as big a job as trying to mount these two motors like this. That was the drive motors kind of figured out a little bit, so let's proceed and take a look at the steering. So we have another 4 screws to take out here, I think. That should let the whole this whole base piece off, and we should be able to see what kind of steering mechanism we already have here. Maybe we can reuse most of it. So here we've exposed our steering mechanism now that we took that last panel off there, and this little axle here goes straight through to the top of the model, where there's a little lever where you can just turn the steering here, and that just connects to a little hole here. Now that probably leaves things pretty simple for us, because all we need to do is connect our steering servo with a little pin on it into this same place. Now, whether it's best to put the steering servo here and turn it like this, or maybe we could take this axle and spin it around, change the direction of the tires also, and we might be able to get our servo in the rear here, quite compact in here somehow, and that might leave the rest of this space then for some sort of vacuum or some sort of pump or something to take up the grass and maybe throw it out to chute. That won't be an easy task to do, so what we're going to make priority is the drive and the steering anyway. But we'll see how it goes. I mean, putting the servo here still leaves all the space at the back. Maybe that's more convenient, but at the minute it's a little bit hard to tell, I guess. But let's continue into the model and see if we can get an idea of what kind of space there is in here if we want to add any sort of vacuum or pump or anything later on. It's quite a bit harder to get the back off this model than I was expecting, but one problem that was holding me up here, I was trying to get this piece off because it seems to be holding the whole thing together, and that's actually the steering control knob, I suppose. And what I didn't notice at first is that it's actually just one of these little joints from the wheels, so it's the same as the axle. So I just had to tap the axle out of this little ring that goes on the outside that kind of fixes it in place. So once I tapped that out with a screwdriver quite carefully, I got that off. So let's see if that'll take the rest of the model apart. Okay, well, we're finally in. I was kind of applying a little bit of pressure to the back here, trying to see what was holding it in place, and whatever it was just gave up and the whole thing kind of flew to bits. So kind of looks like there had been a bit of glue here maybe, and possibly some glue somewhere else, but that's pretty much it. What we had inside here, as you can see, all these panels open up around the model, so you had your engine exposed there. But inside we have this huge big cavity, and if we closed over all these sections here and we didn't have the engine piece in here, you wouldn't see any of that. So we really have all of that space to play with. Now probably when I do it, unless I can't avoid it, I'll probably try and save bits of these engines and some of these nicer looking pieces. But if it can't be avoided, we'll just get rid of them and install whatever vacuum or servos or anything we need, because we need a servo to move the chute on this model, so that's another thing that'll have to be done. But as you can see, we seem to have a huge amount of space here, way more than we would on most models, so we shouldn't have too much trouble converting this to radio control. We definitely have enough space for the wires, but if we want to add these extra features of the vacuum and that's going to take a little bit extra electronics, but more so it's going to take a kind of a pump, and that'll need a motor, and there's a couple of different things. They're probably going to be quite big, so we might not actually be able to do that, but we'll do our best and see what we can do. So I think that's all I'm going to have for this class model. It was hard enough to get apart. Usually Siku models are quite easy. This one had quite a few more screws than the others, and well, no, it didn't have more screws. It had more kind of molded pieces that were pretty tight on each other. But once you got them loose, it wasn't too bad, I suppose. It'll probably take us a little while to get this one finished because it's quite a big build, but we should be able to get moving on the motors and the steering servo pretty soon. And I'll probably add plenty of LEDs to this because I'd say it'll look great with indicator LEDs and brake lights and loads of LEDs on the front. I'd say that would look pretty good. So if you like this video, make sure and hit the like button, and if you want to see more from this build, make sure to hit the like button. That kind of tells me what's more popular, I guess, although I don't always have time to do the bigger builds, but I try to get back to them as often as I can. So if you have any comments or suggestions, let me know below the video or head on over to the forum. And I think that's pretty much everything, so thanks very much for watching.